Hey, quick disclaimer, this is a real quick and dirty video. It's not the best audio quality, there's noise in the background, but I think the content itself is actually really good, so hopefully you can look past that and just focus on what the video presents. Hey everybody, it's Mike from On A New Tack, and we are at the 1,000-hour mark in our engine, so one of the extra steps that you get to do during that is to adjust the valve clearance. You're also supposed to have the injectors serviced and inspected. I don't have access to that right now, so we're going to do that probably when we get to Panama. But anyways, the valve clearance, I'm going to show you how to do that. So the valve cover is this right here. It's held on with 4 of these bolts. I've already taken them off. Okay, I had a moment of sheer panic here because as I was doing this, one of the washers that was underneath the nut was stuck to the valve cover. And when I lifted it up, it became unstuck and it fell into the engine. Luckily into the guideway for the push rod on the valve lifter assembly. So I was able to fish it out, but if I hadn't been able to, it would have been disassembled the whole top of the engine. So word of caution is make sure none of those washers are actually stuck to the valve cover so they don't fall in and do something that's going to make this process be really, really painful. Just loosen those, they're not on very snug. Take off this clamp there for the PCV valve. Basically redirects oil that gets or gas that gets where it shouldn't back into the crankcase or any airflow. So anyways, you grab onto this, squeeze it, and pull it off of this this nipple right here. And then once that is, you'll have to probably bang it a little bit because it's probably stuck, but then this just lifts right off. And you do this adjustment when the engine is cold. So we have all of our valves. I've already adjusted all of them except for one, so I'm going to show you that process. If you use a socket on the main pulley of the engine, you can rotate it. And why don't you zoom into 2 and watch the valves as I rotate the engine. You'll see them lifting and closing. So that is opening the intake or exhaust valves. So you normally start with, this is cylinder 1, so you start with both of these valves flat, would be top dead center. I've already done those, so the only one that's left is the 8th one here, which is, I don't know if it's intake or exhaust. That would probably be intake because it's on right next to the injector. So this is the only one that hasn't been done, and I feel that it's loose there. So you can get 6 of them when you're at cylinder 1 top dead center, and then you have to rotate the engine a little bit until this one is, why don't you zoom in on 5 on that now? So you can see there's a little bit of play there. So you'll need a feeler gauge like this. And for this engine, we're shooting for 0.165 millimeters. I've measured this gauge and it's almost exactly that. So that's the center of the acceptable range. So what we're gonna do is just slide this in between the valve, top of the valve, and the underside of the tappet. Right like that. And then we use a wrench to break free the lock nut right here. And they're on pretty good. So once that's broken free, we're going to loosen it so that's not getting in the way of us figuring out what's going on. And then we're going to take a screwdriver and we're going to, can you see that okay, Sue? Mm-hmm. We're going to basically tighten this screw, and that is going to reduce, when I tighten it, it reduces the valve clearance or the lash that's right there. So what you do is you basically have this ready to lock in the right setting. You're going to tighten this until it basically just makes contact, and then the hard part is holding this steady while you then tighten up this nut that locks in that adjustment. And I loosened it a bunch so that I could tell exactly when it's touching right there. And then we snug that down, and again, it's going to be pretty snug. And then we have to check it. So this should be able to move, which it does. There's a little bit of a burr on the end of my feelers, and it's snagging on that, which is a good sign. And then the next thing you can do is I can go up to the next size on here, which instead of a 0.006 to a 0.008 inch range is a 0.007 to 0.009. And the reason it's got a range is because these are not calibrated. They're basically saying that it's going to be somewhere between there. So it's basically about a 0.007 millimeter. So if I go up to the next size, this is the one I was using, this is the next largest, this should not fit. So if I go in there and I try to slide it in from the side, I can't get in. It gets hung up. So that's a perfect adjustment. And they're all like that. All the ones that are loose, which is most of them except this, and these two are the only ones that are high right now. The only valves that are open. Obviously, there's no way to get that in there. And those don't want to, but if I go back to the desired one, and I try to slide that in, it just goes no problem. So these are dead on right now. And that's what we're going for. So then once that's done, it's just a matter of reassembling. I just removed the radiator cap to make easier access, so it's just tucked out of the way. I would just make sure there's a little bit of no debris, no paint chips or anything like that, and a little layer of oil on here. I think reusing the gasket's no problem. If you notice that there's some oil that's starting to seep out there, then you could always replace it. But I think one time to open and reuse this is fine, and there's no need to use any kind of RTV or anything like that. So this is done now. Everything's been set, so I can just put this back on and make sure this is actually clean. Yeah, and there's a little bit of layer of oil there. I don't see anything on the top of the block. Back in there. And there's some miscellaneous wires and everything else. Gotta make sure those are out of the way. All right, that's that. Get this hose right away so I can't forget it. There we go. That's all the way on there. And then we have our, I'm gonna actually put this back on right away so that nothing can fall in there. You can feel some grit in there. Hold that thought. There we go. Okay, so then is you're gonna thread on, and I have to check if there's a torque setting on this. There probably is. I'll put that as a little note in the video to whatever these are supposed to be tightened to. And then while we're at it, I'll put this back on so I can't get anything into the antifreeze. I just used a little 1/4-inch drive, so it wasn't very much tension. I do have a torque wrench, so I'll double check it. Just a quick update here, that the torque spec is 6 foot-pounds, so it doesn't take a whole lot. That feels right, but I'll double check it. That's all there is to it. So it's actually a pretty straightforward and easy process as long as you have the feeler gauge. And the reason I know what it actually is because I have a very highly accurate caliper, and I can see exactly what this is, which is 0.06 is about 0.156 millimeters, which is right in the middle of the expected range. I think it was, you remember what it was?
165.
0.165 was the ideal. The range for the N4.38 is 1.45 millimeters to 1.85 millimeters. So the target is the middle of that, which is 0.165 millimeters. So it's a little bit on the smaller side, but the bottom side of the range was, I think, 1.45.
1.145.
So, all right, that's it. If you have any questions or anything, reach out.